Computer, yes. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where we have the discussions that inform, entertain, and empower educators to be the change. I am your host, Dr. Will. And today, we're going to be having Mallory Mack on the show. That is a cool name. It sounds like a cartoon character or a gunslinger or a superhero or something.
Whoa, I love that.
Awesome. And we will be talking about Microsoft EDU, which I know hardly anything about. I've been so engrossed into the Google Suite ecosystem that when I had to work in Word, I was like, what is this? What is this? And we brought you here because as we focus on going digital with this show, I do understand that there are schools out there that are Microsoft schools. And so I wanted to bring you on and allow you to share that expertise to my audience. So for those who are watching the show, will you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. My name is Mallory Mack. I am the Microsoft Learning Consultant for San Diego, which is where I'm based. So just a quick intro.
That was really quick.
Super quick. Well, I'm a former teacher. I guess that's also relevant. I used to be a teacher. I taught career and technical ed with computer applications and computer programming. I also taught photography. So that's my background.
Awesome. So you are a Microsoft Learning Consultant and an MIE Master Trainer. What does those positions entail?
Okay, so the Microsoft Learning Consultant, it's an international program, and what we do is go into classrooms and go into schools and kind of just like I'm doing now, spread the gospel of Microsoft in education and kind of share how the tools work and share some examples for how it's worked for other schools. There's 16 of us nationally. All of us are former teachers or former educators in some way. So there's probably one in your town or close to your town, and you can check that out. I'm going to talk about a website in a little bit, but the MIE Master Trainer is a designation that comes from the Microsoft Educator Community, which is a website. It's got a bunch of really great resources for educators. So you need 1,000 points on there, and you get points by taking courses or watching webinars, things like that, to become an MIE trainer. And you also need to go through a self-nomination process, but it's pretty simple. And then to become a master trainer, you've got to go above and beyond that. So that's where those designations come from. Anybody can do it. There's a lot of current classroom teachers that are MIE trainers and MIE master trainers.
Cool. So, a year or so ago, I kept hearing about OneNote. And things were coming out because, Google Classroom came out and it became a huge hit and people were losing their minds. And at first, I was Google Classroom, I drank the Kool-Aid on it. And, I'm not afraid to admit that. And then, once I learned about Schoology, then Google Classroom, that was like, okay, that's that sweater I bring out when grandma comes in town because she needed it. It's not that I'm gonna wear this all the time type sort of thing. So what is the OneNote class notebook? How are teachers using it as a part of their blended learning classroom?
So the OneNote class notebook was actually one of my favorite tools when I was a teacher. Basically, it's a digital binder. And there's 3 spaces in there that you can work, and you add your students to the class just like you would with Google Classroom. And there's 3 spaces. You can use the collaboration space. All the kids can go in there and collaborate. But the teacher has a ton of control in there. So I taught junior high. I know some people listening may say, oh man, everybody can go in and access it, and that's scary. But you got a ton of control. So I never had any issues. So any projects, homework assignments, stuff like that, kids can collaborate. You can do study sessions outside of school, things like that. the content library, which is where you would keep hard copies of any assignments or homework. Kids can make copies of it and add it to their own folder, which brings me to the last space that you can work in, which is the student notebooks. That's where kids can organize and take notes, and anything that they would do in a typical binder, they can do there. You can give parents access per request to see that. So it really holds kids accountable for their work. It gives you a great insight into what they're actually doing in your class, which was one of my favorite things about the OneNote class notebook. In terms of how it helps with blended learning, it helps to organize, but it also is a great tool that you can use with other tools. I'm going to use Google Classroom as an example just because you had brought it up. You can use it in conjunction. I know a lot of teachers, some of their complaints with the Google Drive and Google Classroom is that it's really difficult to find things sometimes if you have a lot. So you can add them both. You can add your OneNote class notebook into Google Classroom just as an organizational tool if that's how you want to use it. So it's kind of up to teachers. I used it as an organization tool for myself just to organize lesson plans and parent contact, stuff like that. So it's totally up to you, but that's basically the structure of it.
Wow. Google and Microsoft getting together.
I know.
That sounds
for
like,
the kids, for the children.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like fatal attraction. right there. So, we are a Google district, as I mentioned, and, I played around with Office 365. I will say that I do like it better than the full-blown Office that is on the hard drive because it's scaled way back to me a lot cleaner to use as well. But I have to say, again, I'm partial to the Google Drive. Please, if you will, speak to what you like best about OneDrive and how teachers and students can use OneDrive for collaboration and for learning anytime, anywhere.
Okay, so the reason that I chose Microsoft as a teacher and kind of the reason I'm in this position now, it all started when my kids and I, like I said, I taught career technical ed. We were writing resumes, we're researching employability skills that employers look for. And 3 of the top 10, I think, were in the Microsoft suites. So there's Microsoft Word, Excel, and Office. Those are 3 things that employers look for in industry outside of education. So I was like, this is great. It's in our curriculum. We could put these skills on our resume today as a 13-year-old. And, you're already ahead of kids that maybe have only been exposed to Google. So that's the reason that I kind of chose it. In terms of collaboration, through Office 365, you can share and collaborate with Word and Excel and PowerPoint just like you do with Google Docs. So there's that capability now. So any chance I get to expose students to these tools that they'd use in industry and have them, have the same capabilities as they would with a Google Doc where they're able to collaborate and share. Plus, like you and I were talking, off the record about there's a lot more in Microsoft Word than there is in Google. And it can be overwhelming for kids that are never exposed to it. So the more exposure they have to the Microsoft suite, the better, in my opinion.
Okay, so let me throw this out there to you. When a teacher, and you can, feel free to use your own experience as a teacher, but when teachers are thinking about planning lessons for students, particularly when we're now talking about students creating and taking ownership of their learning, where do you see the pros of Microsoft EDU in sort of that plan?
Where does it come into play in terms of lesson planning?
Well, then, everyone has their ecosystem that people are sort of gravitating towards. So,
yes, okay.
you have people who are the Apple people, and we are Google folks, and then you have people who are Microsoft. And when they are, when you are saying to yourself, okay, we're going to go digital, and this is our platform, you have to have a plan when doing so, because you don't just buy devices just to buy devices. California, hint, hint, I'm throwing shade. But when you are saying, okay, we're going to go Microsoft.
Okay.
What are the advantages of a school or district going Microsoft and going digital?
Okay, so there's a couple things in there that I'd like to speak to. First of all, I don't think that a district necessarily has to choose between the two. I think that you could definitely, both have made it so easy to work kind of a la carte. And by both, I mean Google and Microsoft. I can't fully speak to Apple, but Google and Microsoft Education have made it so easy to use their products a la carte, and most of them are free. They're cloud-based, they're free. You can use them anywhere, anytime, and you can use them in conjunction with each other. So some people are partial to Google, some partial to Microsoft, and they have their reasons, and I told you mine, which is kind of connected to employability. But I don't necessarily think you have to choose. If your kids are happy and engaged, as a former educator, that's the most important thing. I do think it's important to expose them to a variety of technology tools, so they just get a feel for what they like to. I think that's important. In terms of devices, I did hear you mention devices. I'd say that, so Chromebooks are amazing because they're reasonably priced. They get the job done for the most part with what you want to do. And that's the great thing about Chromebooks. I know a ton of schools that have them. The only thing I'd say that a Windows device, and let me say I'm not a device specialist, so this is kind of my personal opinion rather than my professional opinion. There's Windows devices that are comparably priced, but they have a capability called digital inking, where you can actually write directly on the screen. So, annotating and note-taking, things like that. You can write with a stylus on the screen. With a device like Chromebooks or one similar where they don't have that digital inking capability. An ELA teacher, for example, they have all this great, you can research on the Chromebooks and use the cloud-based tools, but you are still printing out paper to practice writing and annotating on. So if you're a district and you're thinking, all right, we're going to need to spend money somewhere, like we could either go fully digital with the Chromebooks, but still have to print these, pages that kids can actually mark up, versus we could go with this other device that has the digital inking capabilities. One that I really like is, they're called Lenovo's. And I've seen a lot of schools have those that I've seen, and they work really well and they're reasonably priced. So that's the only thing I would say about devices, in terms of choosing a device, if you are going to choose, if you're looking to buy.
Cool. So when you're working with teachers in schools and going digital, what's the conversation like in terms of the mental shift, professional development required, and how the technology should and will change the experience of students?
So this is tough, and I'm sure you've come against this as well. This is a really hard conversation to have with teachers who are a little reluctant to, start incorporating technology, especially going fully digital. And I really can understand the pushback to that, but what I say to teachers is just baby steps. And one example that I use, just that, technology does actually make your life easier and give you more time to actually be with the kids and do a good job in your role. One example that I give them is Microsoft Forms. I use it for pre-tests. I use it for my final exam. And, you create the test, you distribute it to the kids. It comes back to you, it's graded, and there's a diagnostic sheet that spits out, if there's any trends that happened in, maybe your test, you had a question poorly written, or maybe you need to go back and reteach. And any teacher knows after an assessment, it takes a long time to kind of sift through the data and grade. So that tool saves you grading time and data analysis time. That part's already done for you. And that's such an easy tool to start with, Microsoft Forms. So that's my biggest push is these tools do make your life easier. I understand that maybe you're not totally comfortable with them yet. Start with this easy one. Start with a layup, and then we can work our way up to shooting threes, using OneNote, Class Notebook, and things like that, Google Classroom, some of the ones that are a little more advanced.
Cool. So now I'm going to throw this out there to you because I didn't know how to really phrase this question, quite honestly. But okay. It's about Minecraft.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you got excited about that one.
I love this. Yes, I'm hoping. Okay, I'm anxious to hear the question.
So I have 3 nephews, and they all enjoy playing Minecraft. And one of them, Uncle Will, and he shows me, and he enjoyed, doing this, then blowing stuff up.
Boys.
I'm like, hey. And I'm trying to get an idea of, in terms of its educational applications and what students get out of building these worlds and whatnot. What have you seen? I'm just like, what do students get out of it?
Yes.
And how does it expand, I guess, their knowledge, creativity, experience in being creators with technology?
Okay, so I'm going to address that first part, or the last part of your question first, which is how can they be creators in Minecraft? I don't know if you've ever played, but I played for the first time a couple weeks ago, and it is crazy hard because you start with nothing, and if you start with no real direction, you really do have to be very creative in what you're trying to make. So I am amazed to see some of the projects that these kids come up with, because you have to be so creative to play that game. And I'm so impressed with people who are good at it because it's difficult. The educational value of it, I'm going to use a specific lesson plan that comes to mind where a teacher used Minecraft Education Edition in her class. So I think this was a 4th grade classroom. They're studying ecosystems. They went outside and collected some data on certain ecosystems. I think each group had a different one. And they went into Minecraft and built the ecosystem based off the data that they gathered. And the coolest thing, so that's great. I really like that idea. But the coolest thing I thought about this project is that the other groups were able to actually walk into their ecosystem and check it out. Like look at things, you can touch things, you can whatever. And actually in the Education Edition, you can kind of control who can touch what. So, you said your nephews like to blow things up, and, kids like to blow each other's projects up too. So you can control that. But it's such an authentic way to create and then, have kids assess each other and provide feedback, which is another amazing skill to learn. So that's one example that I really love from the Minecraft Education Edition. The other thing that's really cool about it is you can add an element of coding so that kids have to code in order to start the game, which I think is another great tool. Even if you don't teach computer, I'm obviously biased because that's what I taught, but even if you don't teach that, you don't have to know anything about computer programming for the kids to start with the coding aspect of it. So that's just one example of how it's used for educational purposes. I think teachers really have to be creative themselves, but there's a ton of examples. I mentioned the Microsoft Educator Community before. It's education.microsoft.com. Ton of examples, a ton of tutorials for how to get started using it. And just like I said about incorporating technology at all, baby steps, have it be a half a period project just to get started or something like that.
Awesome. Now, since you just brought it up again, let's get a little deeper into that Microsoft community.
Okay.
When a teacher joins, what can they expect to see, and what are the connections like inside the community?
So when you join the educator community, it's totally free. You have to fill out a profile, which kind of just talks about your location, which comes into play because there's events that you can attend in your area, things like that. What you can expect to see beyond that. There's courses, webinars, things that you can take, and they might be a 10-minute course, they might be a 4-hour course. Each course is attached to points, and you accumulate points working towards being the MIE trainer that we talked about earlier. So that's kind of just a goal that you can work towards, but I really like to just go in and watch the videos because that example that I just gave came from that site. And that was such a great insight for me because I had kind of the same question as you about that. Like, how could this possibly be educational? So that's where I got that idea from. And now I'm like totally on board with Minecraft. I love it. How can people connect? I think this is probably the coolest part of the site. So they have a lot of, there's forums and there's, places that you can talk to each other and exchange ideas, but there's also this Skype aspect. And one of the cool things is called Mystery Skype. So if you and I collaborated and you and I were in different places on the United States, obviously, our kids would ask each other questions. Maybe we're studying world geology and we try to guess where each other is, in the world. There's also a math game like that, and you can do any subject with the Skype collaboration, but the Mystery Skype is one of my favorites. And you can use Skype in kind of any capacity. That's one example with the Mystery Skype thing, but there's a lot of collaboration opportunities that I didn't know about this when I was a teacher, and I'm really sad because, I really wish I did. So.
Awesome. So now I'm going to ask you about something which is purely for my benefit.
Okay.
And because we, in our offline conversations, I'd asked you about the Surface, and you told me that you had one.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw those commercials, I was like, that thing looks kind of cool. And when I really, loved about it, even though I prefer, if I could go to Best Buy and they said, Will, pick any device you want, it is yours, it would be a MacBook. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. I love it. But when I saw, the commercials, and I was like, this thing is like fabulous. And then the fact that you had the USB on it, I'm like, wow. I mean, this is next level right here. So what do you like best about the Surface, and what, I guess, has been your experiences in having it that you really say, wow, this is an awesome device?
So the first thing I love about Surface is that digital inking that I was talking about earlier. You can write directly on the device. And the nice thing about the Surface is that it has this super nice pen that you can, it feels and looks exactly like I was writing on a piece of paper, which I haven't found outside of that. So, any document that I'm looking at or reading, I love just marking directly on it, taking notes. You can save it super easily. I can send it right to my OneNote, which that's where I keep everything organized still. And it's a seamless process on the Surface. The other thing I love about it, which you don't necessarily need a Surface for this, is the Windows 10 operating system. Has a ton of great tips and tricks that work so well for teachers and anybody who researches and reads and is into education, anything, or reads anything. So within Windows 10, you can create reading lists that just lines articles up for you in a special little spot. Let me see. I had another thing in mind here with Windows 10, but it's escaping me at the moment, so I'm going to skip it. Those are my favorite things about it. It's super easy to travel with, very lightweight, and that's been my experience. I had a MacBook before as well, and I'd say that I did like it. I like my MacBook. I used Word and PowerPoint, things like that on the MacBook, which just look a little different, and it's not as seamless of a process, but everything works fine. I'd say that it's just seamless. Things are easier, and I love the Windows 10 operating system.
Awesome. So does our network administrator. He loves the he's a Microsoft guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And Albert Galeas. Albert, I'm giving you a shout out on the podcast.
Shout out, Albert.
Yeah, he's other instructional technologist that I work with, and he loves Office so much that he put it on a MacBook.
Right. Yeah, I did the same exact thing, and it works. But
I'm just thinking, like, that's like putting, to me, when I hear that, that's like putting a Yugo engine inside of a Ferrari. I'm just like,
that's way over my head.
I'm like, well, they don't even make Yugos anymore. That's just how bad they are.
Okay. Thanks for the context.
Yeah, they don't make it anymore. And you couldn't put the Yugo engine in anyway. But I'm just in terms of, like, you take this wonderful, beautiful machine, and then you put something in there that doesn't quite fit. So
White work.
That's why I get that.
Yeah.
So the MIE program, because look, I'm on Twitter. You're on Twitter. I keep seeing these people in my feed with these badges. Hey, I'm an MIE. I've been selected. Hey. What is the MIE program, and how does the program assist educators in moving the needle forward in innovative practices in teaching and learning?
So the MIE program is a designation that comes from the Microsoft Educator Community. You go onto the community and you take the courses, and you can become and that's pretty much all that means. The way that it moves the needle forward is the more courses that you take, the more rooted you are in digital literacy and, incorporating technology into your classroom. And, that gets you on your way. I think that example about the Minecraft thing is such a good example thing that if I had a classroom, I would definitely try that. And if it was going to engage my students and make them happy while they're learning something, I think that is so valuable.
Awesome. So before we go, what is your advice for districts who are in the process of sort of deciding which ecosystem to go with?
So, like I said earlier, I don't think you have to choose. If you're feeling that you do, I would personally choose going with Microsoft just sheerly based on employability. Outside of education, I don't know too many industries that use Google Docs or the Google Suite, and I could be totally off base with that. But as far as I know, Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel it's just a huge presence in industry. So I would want students to be exposed to that. I think the devices and the digital inking capabilities with some of the Windows 10 devices would save us money because we really wouldn't have to print. Bottom line though is, what do your teachers like, and what's going to make the biggest difference for kids? And I think that should kind of be the ultimate decider for you. Obviously, I'm a little biased in the Microsoft way, but if that's not how your school is operating, then don't put a Windows 10 operating system in a Mac machine. So
I hear you. Hey, look, this has been an awesome conversation. I learned some things about Office and the Minecraft. That was a great idea, by the way. And hopefully,
right, I know,
people hear this podcast and go, "Oh, let's do that." Like I said, I am biased because I'm a very simple type of dude, and when you look at Google Drive and Google Docs is, all that stuff is very simple. And I know some people, some people are just hardcore people. Like I was doing a train, where the teacher came to me and I said, hey, let's do this in Google Sheets. And she said, I want my Excel, because in Excel I can do blah, 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 blah. And I was like, woo. Yep. I said, woo. That's a lot. That's a lot to try to do. I was like, so you're not going to do that in Sheets. But it wasn't made, for that. But I like it. And I like the on the go piece. I do need to try, Office, the OneNote and Office 365, whatever. I need to try that, more to get used to that on the go. Because for me, having that on the go, I can start it on this machine and pick it up on another machine and do this. To me, that's just the greatest piece of it, as opposed to if it's on my hard drive and my computer dies, then I'm done, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cloud-based piece is amazing. And I think not many people know that Office 365 is a cloud-based system, which, so I'll say that now. You can start a Word document in Office 365 on your computer and, pick it up on a different, just like you would with Google.
Yes. So people, you know how I do this. This is going to go up on the YouTube channel. This is going to be on SoundCloud. This is going to be on iTunes. I'm going to share this on Twitter, LinkedIn. It's going up on my blog site. Thank you, Mallory, for being the guest all the way from your vehicle. I appreciate it.
Yeah, in a Marshall's parking lot. It's fancy.
Excellent. So people, as always, invest in you. EDU. Peace.